Okay, we're up.
Oh, for real?
Yep.
Hi.
Hey, everyone.
Hi, I'm Catherine.
And I'm Crystal.
And I work with the Youth Wetlands program, which is part of Louisiana 4-H. I'm an extension associate.
And I'm the Louisiana 4-H Animal Science Specialist. So happy National Ag Day, and welcome to our first virtual recess live. And just so everybody knows, there's a little bit of a lag on some of our stuff, so bear with us as you're commenting and liking us and all those things. Just bear with us. We're paying attention to those comments, and we want you to be engaged. Please send all the hearts and all the likes. Invite people to watch, and if you have a group or page that you're watching on that this video would be applicable for, please share this. We would love to have everyone watching and learning some about Louisiana agriculture. So we're going to start out real simple. Everyone who's watching, hey, Miss Hope, Chelsea, Megan, so great to see y'all on. Real quick, give us a quick how you define agriculture. Today is National Ag Day, and we're going to be talking a lot about Louisiana agriculture, but we want to see how y'all define agriculture.
Thanks everyone for joining us. Super excited to be here. Happy National Ag Day.
Hey everyone.
Did we freeze?
No, we're still going. It's just that delay. Okay, so Jacob, great. All forms of farming. That's a great way to look at agriculture. Absolutely. Kayla, with the way of living, plants, food, animals. Love it. So all of those are absolutely correct.
Yeah.
All of them are absolutely correct. And if we look at how the USDA and how most dictionaries define agriculture, it's the science or practice of farming and cultivating the land to grow crops, raise animals for food or fiber. So everything y'all said, Lynette with food and fiber, Amy with animals and plants, everything is absolutely correct. And today we're actually going to talk about agriculture in Louisiana. Catherine, you want to go from there?
Yeah, and so one of the unique things about Louisiana's agriculture is that we have a huge aquaculture industry. And aquaculture is just a subcategory within agriculture, specifically towards the production and cultivation of aquatic species, which can be freshwater or saltwater species. Do you guys know what our biggest aquaculture commodity is in Louisiana?
Being that I moved to Louisiana here about 2.5 years ago, aquaculture isn't necessarily in the same terms as it is in Arkansas. And so this was a very big and new part of agriculture to me when I moved down to Louisiana.
Yes. And if you're just now joining us, we're super excited that you're here, and we're talking right now about aquaculture and what we think is Louisiana's biggest commodity within aquaculture.
Crawfish.
Yep,
Olivia,
crawfish.
You are definitely correct.
Nail on the head with that one. Crawfish is our biggest aquaculture commodity. We're one of the top producers of crawfish in the United States, and we're very proud of it. We do have some other big aquaculture industries, shrimping, catfish, tilapia, although catfish is kind of on the way out, and alligators and a few others. And we're going to go into depth on one of those. So to kick it off into our next stage, do you guys know what, first of all, Louisiana is the world leader in producing in terms of agriculture? And Crystal, what's the other one?
So we also want to know if y'all know what the agricultural commodity, specifically the animal agricultural commodity, that makes the biggest impact in Louisiana agriculture. So we're asking two questions. Y'all definitely hit the nail on the head with all your aquaculture definitions. You got the crawfish, the shrimp, the alligators. And now we're wondering, do you actually know, one, what animal commodity brings the most money to Louisiana economically? And two, what we are the world leader in?
All right, and if you're just now joining us, thanks for watching. Really excited to have you here.
If you are just joining again, I'm Crystal Ahrens. I'm the animal science specialist for Louisiana 4-H.
And I'm Catherine Fox. I'm an extension associate with the Louisiana 4-H Youth Wetlands program.
We're testing out y'all's knowledge, seeing if y'all know what Louisiana is the world leader producer of in agriculture and what our largest animal commodity is here in Louisiana.
If you need a hint.
Uh-oh. Allie's showing some chickens. So yes.
Yeah.
Allie, you are absolutely correct. So the answer to one of our questions is that chicken and poultry production is the #1 leading economically impactful animal production here in Louisiana.
Ooh, Menhaden is a good guess. Although I don't know if they necessarily fall in the aquaculture category, since they are harvested from the wild. Boats go out and catch them, but they are a huge part of Louisiana's economy, and maybe later we'll do a special on them.
So it doesn't look like anybody's quite got it yet, but if we are talking about what we're the world leader in, Catherine, what is it?
It's alligators. So when it comes to farm raising alligators, Louisiana is the world leader in it. We've led the way since we started our alligator management program in the 70s, and we're still the leaders today. And when it comes to research, we are one of the top leaders in the world when it comes to alligator research. So we, in sort of preparation for this, we put on the Louisiana 4-H Instagram story and Facebook story the question, what came first, the modern alligator or the modern chicken? And if you guys got a chance to participate in that, you know that the answer is the modern alligator. So the modern alligator evolved 8 million years ago, which is a really long time ago, and they really haven't changed much since then. For comparison, the modern humans, which is us, we evolved around 300,000 years ago. And Crystal, when did modern day chickens evolve?
So when we talk about modern day chickens, we are so much younger. Our modern day chicken was actually domesticated only about 10,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So now that we know that Louisiana is the world leader in alligators, chickens are our biggest production format. Those are two very different animals, and they're found in the same state, and they're very impactful in the same state. So my question is, where do y'all think that most of these animals are found? Where do we find our chickens in Louisiana, and where do we find our alligators? We're getting a lot of really good answers. Ashley couldn't find her alligator emoji, but loving the chickens, loving the alligators. Y'all are doing great. Thank you so much for joining. Keep sharing, keep answering our questions. But where do y'all think all of our chickens and alligators are found?
In Louisiana, not
in Louisiana.
Alligators, you will find them in swamps. You'll find them in a few other places too, but they do love some swamps. They are in Cameron Parish big time. Cameron Parish is actually the location of one of our top research facilities for alligators, Rockefeller Wildlife Refuge. So there should be a big population of alligators in Cameron Parish.
Ooh, Jacob, chickens, North Louisiana. Great answer. Great answer. So good job. Since we've got a good answer on that, Jacob was telling us that he believes chickens are found mostly in North Louisiana, and he is absolutely 100% correct. Almost all of our broiler production for sure is in North Louisiana, contained in about an 11 parish area. So a very small area. And all of our poultry and chickens are produced in houses, some in backyard production. You will see some backyard layers, and then we have 4-H production as well. But a majority of our production agriculture, poultry production, occurs in North Louisiana. That's absolutely correct. So we're seeing a lot of swamps and marshes for those alligator answers. Catherine, are they right?
Yeah, they're right. And I'm also seeing a few of you shout out to like bayous and marshes and parishes in South Louisiana, and that's absolutely correct. You're going to find the majority of Louisiana's alligators in South Louisiana, both the wild population and the farm populations. So the reason the wild population likes to hang out in South Louisiana is alligators' preferred habitat is coastal wetlands, and Louisiana has a lot of coastal wetlands. So that's why we have a large percentage of our wild population down south. The reason we have our farm population, while most of them are down south, is because that's where most of the alligator farms are. Most alligator farms are going to be in your southern parishes like Vermilion, and a few surrounding areas, and over in the southeast as well. Now, there is a difference between habitats for farm-raised gators and wild alligators. Wild alligators are going to hang out near marshes and swamps and bayous. Farm-raised gators, however, are going to be housed in houses. And these houses are going to be low, they're not going to have a very high ceiling, and they're going to be filled with large pools where the water can be temperature regulated to keep it a warm 88 degrees year-round. It's also humidity controlled. And this is just to help them with growing and to keep them active and healthy. Crystal, how are chickens raised?
I'm back. Sorry. So surprisingly, chickens and alligators are actually raised very similarly. For those of you who know about poultry production, you probably know that chickens are also raised in houses. Our houses are a little bit different. We don't necessarily want water in our poultry houses. Our poultry houses are designed so that they have controlled bedding. We will utilize products from around Louisiana, or depending on where your poultry houses are found, usually bedding can come from local areas. So if forestry is a major commodity, you may have some sawdust. If cotton's a major commodity, you may have some cottonseed hulls, and different things like that. So we put bedding to control moisture. We also use our knowledge of what is most comfortable for those chickens. So we control temperature, we control humidity, ventilation, even lighting schedules, so that our chickens are eating and sleeping when they need to be doing that. And it's all designed for the most efficient growth that we can get out of our poultry production. So alligators and chickens are very similar in that way, that they're grown in houses. Just where they're found is a little bit different in Louisiana. Now, along with that, we also have automated waters found in all of these chicken houses, and we have automated feeders. When we look at the nutrition of chickens, we look at a 3-phase nutrition format. So when they're young, they start on a starter feed. They spend a lot of time on what we call a grower feed, and then they have a finisher feed as well. It's a pelleted feed that looks very similar to what you see on the screen here, and it runs about 16 to 18% protein is about what we're looking for to grow our chickens. So I'm wondering now, Catherine, what does alligator nutrition look like on these farms? How do they eat?
So alligators that are farm raised also eat a specialized feed that's made for them, and it looks like this. which it looks like dog food. And if you guys could smell it, it smells a lot like dog food too. And alligator feed, it's interesting that you say chickens only need about 16 to 18% protein, because alligator feed is somewhere between 45% and 55% protein. So when alligators are first hatched, for about the first 3 months of their life, they're going to be getting specialized feed at 55% protein. And then once they hit 3 months, they're going to transition to 45% protein in their diet. And this is a very high amount of protein. You really won't find this percent of protein in any other animal feed. So do you guys know why alligators have to have such a high protein content in their diet?
For anyone just joining us, thank you for joining us. We're talking about two very impactful agricultural commodities in Louisiana. So right now we're talking about poultry and alligators, and we're trying to find out if y'all know why alligator nutrition has to have about 40 or more percent daily to meet their needs versus poultry, where we're really only feeding about 16 to 18% protein. What guesses do y'all have as to why that's such a big difference?
And some hints, if you're having a hard time thinking about it, is think about what the wild alligators are eating, because the wild alligators are also getting the nutrition they need. So think about what they eat, and that should give you the answer for why alligators need such a high protein diet.
So Olivia's saying because they're cold-blooded. Maddie, because they hibernate. That's a cool answer. And then we have some of the opposites, because they're super active. There we go. Amy Schultz. Alligators have such a high percentage because they are carnivores.
They are carnivores. So carnivores mean that they're meat eaters. Alligators exclusively eat meat. You're not going to see them chowing down on some grass or any other type of plants. And because they eat a very strict meat diet, and in the wild they're also eating lean meat, so that means their meat doesn't really have a lot of fat. Their digestive tracts are really only made for protein and not a lot of fat, not really any sugar or any of that other stuff that you're going to find in other types of diet. And that's why the specialized feed on the farms has such protein content, and it's also low in fat. Now, if you've ever gone on a swamp tour in South Louisiana, you might have seen that they feed marshmallows to alligators. That's really not the best thing for them. Marshmallows are high in fat and in sugar, and alligators' digestive tracts aren't made for that. So it can be hard for them to digest that, and it might cause problems down the line. So if you do go on a swamp tour, make sure that you're not feeding the alligators marshmallows.
Awesome.
Also, since alligators are carnivores, Crystal, what kind of consumer type are chickens?
So when I mentioned earlier that we feed a pelleted feed, and that's about 16 to 18% protein, that feed that we feed to our chickens is often from vegetarian formats. Corn, wheat, soybeans, those are all very popular because we can utilize those feedstuffs and make a very high quality product. But if we think about poultry in nature and where they naturally come from, they are omnivores, meaning that they actually consume both meat and vegetation. Because if you think about those backyard chickens, they're eating worms and bugs, and naturally that's what they actually desire.
Right. Cool. So omnivores means eating plants and animals, whereas carnivores, like our alligators, are exclusively animal eaters. So now that we've learned a little biology and some little interesting facts about how you raise alligators and chickens, we're going to move on to why these industries are so important to Louisiana. First off, we're going to start with alligators. So as of 2018, there were 32 alligator farms in Louisiana that harvested around 500,000 alligators total in 2018. And this led to about $102.5 million being generated just alone from those alligator farms. This might not seem like that big of a number, but if you look on average, that's about $3.2 million per farm, which is a pretty good income for the year. And so, Crystal, what are some of those stats on the chicken industry in Louisiana?
So the chicken industry is a little bit different than the alligator industry. In the chicken industry, we have two production formats. We have what we call broiler production, which is the production of those animals that we are actually going to consume, and you're going to see that chicken on your plate. The other is for egg production. And in Louisiana, we actually have about 620 broiler growers that produce over 950 million pounds of chicken meat specifically per year, bringing into the Louisiana economy $937 million. So making that industry the number one animal producing industry in Louisiana, since they do bring in so much value for us. And then on the egg side of things, we also have about 730, little over 730 egg producers that produce about 22 million dozen eggs per year, which adds another 27.6 million to the Louisiana industry. So our chicken and our egg production bring a lot into Louisiana and add a lot of economic value there. And we work really hard to make sure that there's no waste and use every bit of the animals that we can. And so when you go shopping and you pick up that chicken breast or those chicken thighs in the deli section, and then you run over and get your stock, just remember that we're using every piece of the animal. So those bones that you didn't see in that package of breast meat went to make something like the chicken stock or something along those lines. And Catherine, now I know we talked about harvesting, but we didn't talk much about, I know according to the boots in my closet, we don't waste any of our alligators either. So what's going on there?
Correct. So alligators are mostly raised for their skin. So when they're harvested, it's mainly for their skin, so that can be tanned and turned into leather for products like your boots, briefcases, watch straps, belt, and many other things. Basically anything that you use cow leather for, you can use with alligator leather. It's just more high quality, or it's deemed more high quality, so it costs a bit more. But also, every time those alligators are harvested, their meat is also used for food for us. So if you go to a restaurant or a grocery store here in South Louisiana, they'll probably have alligator available if you want it. But also, alligators are being used for medical research. Their blood has some antibacterial properties that medical researchers are looking into to see if they can mimic it for us, since we don't naturally fight off infection like they do.
That's incredibly interesting. So, hey, Catherine, we have a question. Heather is asking, how big can an alligator actually get? Do you have an estimation on that?
Yeah, so it depends on if an alligator is a male or a female. The males can get bigger than the females, and they normally max out at around 15 feet. And the females are going to max out somewhere between 8 and 9 feet. But both are pretty large, and you don't want to come up across a 15-footer or a 9-footer in the wild.
No, absolutely not. And just like Heather shot out a question that she was interested in, absolutely please do this and share this video with people you think would love to learn more about alligators. We still have more exciting things coming in the alligator world. And if you have any questions about the industry, please just let us know. And if you're just joining us, happy National Ag Day. And we are going to start talking about something chickens and alligators might just have in common, which is eggs. So as I spoke about with chickens being both broiler producers and egg producers, they produce table eggs, which we eat. They also produce eggs to produce those broilers that hatch. And so when we look at a chicken egg, they're a little bit different than what we're going to talk about for alligator eggs. For one, it's not going to take as long. So chickens will actually lay one egg every day, depending on breed. So it takes about 21 to 24 hours for them to produce an egg, and they can do it every single day. Catherine, what about alligators? When do they lay eggs?
So alligators will only lay eggs once a year, and they're going to lay their eggs in mid-June. They don't lay one egg at a time, though. They're going to lay all their eggs at one time. And so a female alligator will normally lay about 30 to 35 eggs at one time, but it can be as much as 60. And so she's going to lay them all in one nest, and that's all of her eggs for the year. It also takes alligators a really long time to mature to where they can actually lay eggs. So a female alligator has to be 8 years old before she'll ever lay her first clutch of eggs. Because of that, it's really not feasible for us to raise alligators for the purpose of laying eggs and producing more alligators. So instead, farmers will go out and collect wild eggs from nests out in the marsh and other wetland areas, and that they will use those eggs to produce their supply of alligators for the year, versus raising a bunch of alligators for 8 years before they even get their first hatchlings.
So, Catherine, we know that alligators, it takes 8 years to mature before they can even reproduce. David is actually asking us how long alligators live, how long can they live. So do you have an estimation of maybe what that looks like in like how long it takes before they're harvested on farm and how long they live in the wild?
Sure. So in the wild or in captivity, that's not related to alligator farming, alligators can live around 50 years, a little more or a little less. That number we aren't 100% confident in because sometimes it's hard to track how old a wild alligator is. So that number could actually be a lot higher or a little lower. But right now, the data says that their average lifespan is about 50 years. Now, on a farm, alligators are normally only raised for about a year. So they hatch, and around 1 year old is when they're going to be harvested. And this is just one because you don't really want to spend a lot of time constantly raising alligators before you can harvest them. And also they grow pretty fast on those farms. They grow about 4 feet a year. So by the time they're a year old, they're at a harvestable size.
All right. And so we have another question that is from Lisa. How old is a chicken when they start laying egg? So chickens are a lot younger. So like we said, they can lay 1 egg a day. And they're actually only about 18 weeks to maturity. So that's about 4.5 months of age. At 4.5 months of age, a chicken can start laying pretty consistently. So big difference in that, but also lifespan changes as well. Dr. Fox also asked a difference between the size of egg producers and broilers. So broiler growers will tend to have more animals and numbers on farm than egg producers because they're going to come in as a bunch of chicks and go out as grown animals, and they rotate through that process, whereas laying hens are an everyday process. So there's probably going to be fewer houses on a laying hen farm compared to a broiler operation, but that's a great question. And we have questions rolling in, and we are so excited. So one of those questions specifically is we're starting to ask about the temperature of the nests in alligators. And so I think there's some really cool facts that go along with this. Catherine, you want to talk about temperature and incubation and all of that for alligators?
Sure. Yes. So in the wild, which is how we don't really do this in captivity, so it's always in the wild, but alligator eggs, the mom's going to build a nest. So she's going to use grasses and other wetland plants around her. She's going to rip those up and pile them up into a nest. And this nest can be massive. It can be around 8 feet wide to up to 6 feet tall. So it is a big mound of dead grass and plants. So she's going to lay her eggs in that around mid-June. Then she's going to cover the eggs with more plant matter. And the eggs do need to be incubated for 65 days. But she's not really going to be the one doing the incubating. She weighs over 100 pounds. So she'll crush the eggs. Plus, alligators are reptiles, which means they're cold-blooded and can't produce any body heat. So she's really not good at incubating eggs. So alligator eggs are incubated by the sun and by the heat produced from all of that decaying plant matter in the nest. That's how they're incubated. Another cool thing about temperature and alligator eggs is temperature is what determines the sex of each alligator embryo. So if the temperature is 86 degrees or a little lower, that alligator embryo is going to be female. If the temperature is 91 degrees or a little higher, the embryo is going to be male. Now, if it's between 87 and 90 degrees, that's kind of a toss-up. You're going to get a good mix of male and female in that range for temperature. So, Crystal, how does incubation work with chicken eggs?
So chicken incubation is a little bit different. And guys, y'all are doing a great job with your questions. We have some great people answering questions as well. Catherine, when you come back, we have some questions about predators to alligator eggs and things along those lines. So when we look at incubating chicken eggs, it's a lot shorter of a process. So the incubation occurs manually in our production formats because we want to make sure we get as many to hatch as possible. So eggs are collected and taken to a hatchery where they're put into an incubator like you see here. That red incubator is kind of an industrial size incubator that we hold consistent at a very specific temperature and humidity. We like to keep it around 100 degrees for temperature, and we like about a 60-degree humidity. And if you look at the other small incubator picture, you'll notice that those eggs are tilted. So when we look at incubating chicken eggs, we actually rotate those eggs 2 to 3 times a day because we do not want the growing embryo inside the egg to attach to the shell. If they attach to the shell, they could have developmental issues. They may not hatch at all. So we have to turn our chicken eggs. And once again, they only take about 21 days to hatch. So we'll turn them up until day 18. And then at day 18, we'll stop turning them because they need to find this air cell that you can see in this diagram here. They need to find the air cell because their lungs are fully developed at 18 days or more, and they need to be able to position themselves for hatching. And if we move them after they find their air cell, they may lose it and it could cause hatching issues. So how does that work in alligators, Catherine? Because we turn our eggs. Is it okay to move eggs on the alligator nest?
No, it's not. But before I go into detail on that, I did want to answer some of the predators for alligator eggs in the wild. So some predators that might think alligator eggs are a really great snack are raccoons, snakes, maybe male alligators, bobcats, basically anything that can get its way over to the nest and eats meat or eggs for their diet. However, they aren't completely unprotected. The mama gator does stick near the nest to protect the eggs. So it's kind of a toss-up if you want to try and go and fight mama gator just for a snack. But back to if you rotate the alligator eggs when they're incubating. No, you don't. The reason for that is if you rotate, shift, or move the egg around too much, the embryo inside of the egg will suffocate. And that's because it's weird because Crystal says chickens, you don't want them to attach to the eggshell. Well, you do want the alligator embryo to attach to the eggshell in a way. So behind me is a diagram of an alligator egg. So right here we have our little alligator embryo developing. The yolk is where they're going to get their nutrition while they're inside the egg. We have our eggshell, a leathery membrane inside the eggshell, and then there's blood vessels coming out of the alligator embryo into the yolk so that they can get their food, and then it connects to the eggshell, and this is how they're going to breathe. So they're going to use their blood vessels to force carbon dioxide through the shell to get rid of it, but also to take in oxygen. So if you move or shift that egg around too much, those blood vessels are going to separate from the eggshell, and that alligator embryo won't be able to get oxygen and they will suffocate. So that's why it's very important when handling alligator eggs that you're not shifting or turning them too much. So when our alligator farmers go out to collect the wild eggs, they're going to mark the top of each egg so that they know which way the egg needs to always be facing to prevent it from turning or accidentally killing the embryo inside the egg.
Catherine, along that, you may have already mentioned this once, but we have a great question from actually a 4-H wetland ambassador. Scooter is asking what the ratio of wild collected alligator eggs are to the hatched and what must be returned to the wild.
Yeah, that is a great question. So every year, alligator farmers go out and collect a large percentage of wild eggs. They're going to hatch all of those eggs. The hatch rate for collected alligator eggs is about 90%. So 90% of those eggs are going to hatch. The alligator farmers will raise all of those hatchlings for 1 year, and at the end of 1 year, they need to release 10% of those hatchlings back into the wild. So let's say an alligator farmer hatched 100 eggs. They're going to raise 100 alligators for 1 year, and at the end of 1 year, they need to release 10% of that, or 10 alligators, back into the wild. And that's to help maintain the wild population size. That rate does fluctuate based on what they think the natural survival rate for alligators is in the wild. So it was higher at one time when we were trying to grow the population. Now we have a fairly large wild alligator population, so we're just trying to maintain it, which is why the rate has dropped down to 10%.
All right. So we've covered a lot about poultry and alligator production here in Louisiana, and we're actually going to start wrapping this up. Y'all have been asking great questions, and we're loving this, but we have a few more surprises up our sleeve. So if you have some people interested in seeing baby alligators and learning a little bit more about alligators, Catherine might just bring in a friend for us. So please share, and start inviting some people while we talk about like just the summary of what we've been talking about. Those of you who are joined us here at the end, we decided that agriculture is very, very important to Louisiana, and it is National Ag Day. And poultry production is actually the most economically important ag industry or animal ag industry to Louisiana. Colton is ready to see them gators. So, and Heather Harper is asking, how many teeth do alligators have?
So I can't remember off the top of my head the set amount of teeth alligators have, but they can go through thousands of teeth in their lifetime, and that's because they're using their teeth to grab and hunt. They lose teeth pretty frequently, but they can regrow them. So unlike us, who only have our baby teeth and then our permanent teeth, alligators can constantly grow new teeth. So they go through thousands of teeth in their lifetime.
Okay, so Catherine, why don't you talk about who you've got there and all that good stuff.
So this is Clyde, and Clyde was named by our coworker, Lindsay. Clyde hatched in August of last year. He's a little small, but that's because his growth rate isn't as fast as a farm-raised alligator. So wild alligators only grow about a foot per year, and so Clyde here is just the right size. Clyde here is also an educational alligator. So he's permitted through Wildlife and Fisheries to be used for educational use, like he is right now, being on display for all of you watching. Now, I say he's permitted. He is not a pet as alligators in Louisiana, or keep alligators in Louisiana. And so he is not a pet. He is permitted, and when he gets bigger, he will be released back into the wild.
So, Catherine, as you are showing off Clyde, and we know that it's illegal to have alligators outside of a permit or educational use, what opportunities might someone have in Louisiana to hang out with some alligators, or what do we offer? What are those opportunities?
So there are some opportunities besides looking at Clyde here on our Facebook Live. There are alligator swamp tours and things like that. But then there's also the Youth Wetlands program and Marsh Maneuvers. Marsh Maneuvers is a summer camp that we offer in coordination with Louisiana Sea Grant, where we spend 1 day focusing on alligators and going in depth into Louisiana's alligator management, where Marsh Maneuvers campers will also get the chance to hang out and interact with some alligators at Rockefeller Wildlife Refuge. Oh, and if you're a wetland ambassador, you're trained on how to handle our educational alligators, and you can actually do some of these alligator demos yourself. So I know a few of our wetland ambassadors are watching. They have all been trained on how to handle Clyde here.
And as Louisiana 4-H has a lot of activities come out for virtual recess, Catherine, what do y'all have going on for the wetlands side of that?
So for the wetlands side of virtual 4-H, our virtual recess, we have Wetland Wednesdays, which will be starting tomorrow. And these Wetland Wednesdays will feature wetland-related activities that you can do from home, things that you can find in and around your house. So it's fun ways to learn about your wetlands virtually through Wetland Wednesdays. What about you guys? Is Animal Sciences doing anything special for virtual recess, Crystal?
Absolutely. So along with virtual recess, you will see some opportunities in the meat science world. You'll see meat science on Mondays come out occasionally. It won't be every single week like you will have the Wetlands Wednesday, but we'll have meat science on Mondays occasionally, and I'll give you some opportunities to get in the kitchen, learn more about your meat and how it's affected by cooking and different things like that, selection and how to make new things out of it. And if you enjoyed this, we have one last major question for you. And if you were on our Instagram Live or our Instagram poll, you know what the question is. But do y'all believe that now that we know that alligators and chickens both have nests and they both produce eggs and all of those things, do you think they might be related? And if you enjoyed learning about something like this, I'm going to ask you to do us a favor in Louisiana. So we have a great opportunity coming out in July that we will be releasing our school enrichment program for teachers. So if you enjoyed learning about alligators and chickens, this embryology program is meant to be taught in your science classes. And it's actually going to follow the embryological development of a chick in class, like you can see on screen now. You'll actually be able to have the opportunity to have an incubator, and you'll learn and compare embryological development between chickens and alligators and do an entire section, section and unit on if they're related and checking that out and seeing how they're related. So if you enjoyed this, if you enjoyed learning, if you enjoyed hearing about this concept, please, please, please tag your school, tag your teacher, at them in our comments, have them check this out because it's a great opportunity to bring both of these agricultural formats into your classroom. It's completely free, full lesson plans, everything's there for a supplemental unit where you actually get to do exactly what we just talked about. Yeah. So we're getting a few last things. Great jobs. Can I hear Baby Clive? Is Baby Clive talking loud? Is it Clyde? It's Clyde.
Clyde, yeah. Baby Clyde, he was making some noise. You might have heard him. It sounds a little like, and that's a noise that a lot of young alligators make. It's how they signal their mom. So he was getting a little stressed out, so I put him up, and that's why he started making the noise. But thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys liked learning a little bit about two unique agricultural commodities here in Louisiana.
Happy National Ag Day. Thank a farmer. And hopefully you enjoyed.
Yeah. And I'll keep commenting with your questions. We'll try and answer them even after we end the video.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.